Today, we're talking about how to build an AI first company in 2026. Most business leaders think that being AI first means using ChatGPT or sprinkling some AI into their workflows. But the real winners of the next decade aren't just going to bolt AI onto old processes. They will build or rebuild their companies around data, intelligence, and continual improvement. And the gap between those two approaches is going to be massive. My name is Joshua Ebner. I've spent 20 years in the AI and data science industry. And if I had to build a company around AI and data now in 2026, I'd use a very different approach than what most companies are using today. So, in this video, I'm going to explain exactly how I'd structure an AI first company. Things like teams, technology foundations, tools and use case selection, and more. Let's jump in. So, first, let's start with the big picture. Many companies right now are thinking about using AI for kind of little things: question and answer sessions, brainstorming solutions to problems, and so on. I'm going to challenge you to think differently and think much bigger about AI. You can use AI to improve almost every part of your business. If you want a better product, there are AI tools and techniques that you can use. If you want increased customer acquisition, there are AI tools and techniques. If you want better brand, better customer sat, higher customer lifetime value, meaning higher cart values, or a longer relationship with a customer, if you have something more like a subscription service or continuity plan, all of those things can be improved or enhanced in some way with artificial intelligence. Now, I will say the best companies of the last 10 years already really figured this out. So the FAN companies, large SaaS companies, some large banks, they deeply integrated the previous waves of AI, meaning neural networks and various predictive systems, other types of kind of older AI that we'll talk about in a second. The best companies of the last 10 years integrated AI deeply into almost all of their operations. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they won. I saw that firsthand. And what I'm suggesting to you is that if you want to build an AI first business, and you really want to beat your competitors over the next 10 years, you too will need to think about how you can integrate the whole variety of AI, not just large language models, by the way. And we'll talk about that as well in a moment. But you're going to have to figure out how you can integrate AI deeply into every part of your business. And that brings us to my next point for building an AI centric business. If you're thinking about AI as only one thing, meaning AI equals large language models, you're probably missing 80% of the value that artificial intelligence can bring. So, my next point is that you need to understand the different types of AI and understand when to use a particular AI tool for a particular problem. Let me explain. There are at least four different major types of AI that I talk about for most of my customers. There's more than that, but these are the four big ones. By the way, if you want to understand how ready your business is to use AI to maximum effect, take my AI readiness assessment. You can find the link in the description. Click on the link. It'll only take you a few minutes and it will tell you how ready your business is to use AI across four different domains. Click on the link and take the AI readiness assessment. There are at least four different major types of AI that I talk about for most of my customers. There's generative AI, predictive AI, exploratory AI, and agentic AI. There's also a couple others like computer vision. Those are maybe a little bit more niche. So let me kind of go through and explain why this is so important. Many business leaders, when they start thinking about AI, they immediately jump to ChatGPT or Claude, and they think that they need to integrate those tools more deeply into their business. That's part of it, but those are generative AI systems. And generative AI, as the name implies, is good at generating outputs, but it's not really good at solving a variety of other types of problems. So you can use generative text models like ChatGPT for things like summarization, certain types of text analysis, although there are some better tools for text analysis in some scenarios. You can use large language models for brainstorming and question and answer. And then certain types of thinking and reasoning, although that can get better with agentic AI. We'll talk about that in just a second. So, with LLMs and generative text AI, this is really good when you have a text based output. But if you need to make a prediction in your business, things like forecasting demand, forecasting sales, predicting whether a customer is going to churn or maybe upgrade to a higher service level, anything where you're trying to predict some outcome, particularly when that outcome is quantifiable as a number or it's some sort of category, like a yes or no outcome, you're going to use predictive AI for those problems, not generative AI. Furthermore, the third type of AI that I already mentioned is what I call exploratory AI. That's just sort of a clever name that I use for what we in the industry call unsupervised learning. And this finds patterns in data. So, as opposed to the other two, where you're generating outputs or making predictions on the basis of inputs, exploratory AI kind of just explores a data set and finds previously unseen patterns. This can be very useful for product strategy and market strategy. So, for example, we'll very commonly use certain types of segmentation for product and marketing. That's ultimately a type of exploratory AI in this framing. And then we have AI agents, which can use actually the other types of AI. And in some sense, they're built with a large language model at the core. So they're built on top of LLMs, but they're so different in some ways that I consider them to be something separate. And agentic AI is really good when you're trying to automate workflows or automate multi step processes. Again, this is really important. If you want to build an AI first business, you need to understand the different tools in the toolkit. Just like if you're using physical tools, if you need to hammer a nail into a 2x4, you're probably not going to use a wrench for that. You could try, but it's not really the best tool for the job. If you need to hammer a nail, you're going to use a hammer. Very similarly with AI, if you're going to solve a prediction problem, you use predictive AI. If you need to automate a workflow, you're going to use agentic AI. So you need to understand the range of different tools and how and when to apply them. But no matter which type of AI you're using in your AI first business, you're almost always going to need one ingredient that's common to all of them. And that brings us to our next point. If you want to build an AI first business in 2026, you need to build your data foundations. So, almost every type of AI that we just talked about, whether we're talking about large language models, predictive AI, exploratory AI, AI agents, or anything else, in almost every case, those types of systems need data in one type or another. That's particularly true for exploratory AI and predictive AI. You are going to need clean, well structured data that is available inside of your company to build those systems. But it's even true for things like large language models and AI agents. If you take an off the shelf LLM and try and use it inside of your business, it's generally not going to work very well. Why? Because LLMs are trained on very general data from the internet, but an LLM isn't going to know your data from your business. So, what we're typically going to do is we will enhance a large language model with a database or a document store where you take your documents, your contracts, your policies, SOPs, procedures, strategic documents, and so on. We'll put those documents into a sort of document storage system, typically a vector database or something similar. And we'll take those databases and document stores and connect them to a large language model that will help an LLM understand your business better. And it will give it a lot more context such that an LLM will make better decisions and give you better answers to your questions. What I'm saying here is that those databases and document stores are essentially types of data. You're going to need that data ready. It will need to be cleaned and prepared in certain ways in order to connect it properly to an LLM, such that you can start getting more benefits. Something very similar can be said for AI agents. One of the biggest reasons that AI agents don't work very well in many cases is because companies are failing to gather their data properly to connect to an agent and give an agent more information to work with. So, if you want to build an AI first business, you need to start thinking about where your data lives. You're going to need to make sure that it is aggregated, stored properly in an accessible location, that it's clean, that it's validated, and so on. This is going to require certain types of data engineering talent, either inside of your business or available to you through consultancies or contracting firms. But ultimately, having this data available and ready to go is part of the bedrock of your AI strategy. But even if you have the right data, it's going to be useless without this next piece. And that brings us to the next key to building an AI first company in 2026. You need to build AI literacy across the company. So it'll be next to impossible to build a truly AI first company if only your technical people understand what AI is and how it works. So, one way or another, you're going to need to build competence and literacy about AI, at least conceptually, across the entire business. Leaders are going to need a firm grounding in AI, machine learning, and data so they understand what these tools can and cannot do, and ultimately to make better decisions about use cases. Operators inside the business, and I suppose that also includes managers and leaders, are going to need to understand how to incorporate AI into their workflows, things like prompting, providing context to large language models, evaluating systems, and so on. Almost everybody is going to need some knowledge about how to do this so they can leverage AI to maximum effect for maximum productivity. And then, of course, your technical people are going to need to understand AI at a pretty deep level. What I'm seeing right now is many people who maybe used to be software engineers are claiming to be AI experts. Now, if you have an ex software engineer, they probably have some of the skills that are going to be required for AI expertise, but AI and machine learning are really their own separate thing. So, if you want serious AI and machine learning talent, you're either going to need to take your software engineers and data engineers and get them some additional training, or you'll need to hire some people that deeply understand AI and machine learning. But of course, business isn't just about your teams and internal processes, it's ultimately about serving customers. And that brings us to our next point. If you want to build an AI first company in 2026, you need to use AI to understand your customers. This is actually one of the key mistakes that I'm seeing currently, and I've actually seen this over multiple years in the past as well. Many companies currently want to use AI for brainstorming, question and answer, automating workflows, etc. But one of the best ways that you can use AI is to understand your customers, what they need, what they want, what they hate, their product preferences, their customer service preferences, and so on. You can use AI for all of that if you know the right tools and the right techniques. By the way, that's probably not going to be a large language model. You can use LLMs for some of that, but that really doesn't work at scale. So, a couple of things here. Number one, the data piece that you need to understand your customers is usually found either in your customer behavioral data, how your customers are using your product, interacting on your website, and things like that. You'll likely have some good customer data in things like sales transcripts or customer service transcripts. That's especially true today when you have customer service calls. There's usually a chat log or a phone call log now, and you can mine that data for customer insights. And then, even traditionally, but that's also true now, you have customer data in things like surveys, not only answers to specific survey questions, but there's often very valuable data in what we would call open ended text questions, where you have a question that says, would you like to add anything else? And then you leave an open text box for them to kind of just type in whatever they want. You can mine all of that customer behavior and survey data and text data to find out customers' needs, desires, and perceptions. And this is kind of upstream of a lot of other things in a business. If you want to build a better product, you need to understand customer preferences. If you want to improve your marketing and your messaging, you need to understand your customers' preferences. If you want to increase customer sat, it's the same thing. I can kind of go on and on and on about this all day long. Almost everything in business is downstream of understanding your customers. So you're going to have to get that data, process it the right way. Typically, we're going to use a variety of techniques. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but off the top of my head, you can use masked language models like BERT based models to mine some of your text data. That works much better at scale than a large language model. You can actually use certain types of predictive AI, but instead of using predictive techniques to make predictions, you can actually, if you build it right, you can build a predictive model and then look inside and figure out what are the input factors that cause particular customer behavior. So if you build a churn predictive model and you build it the right way, you can look inside and figure out what are the input factors that lead to that negative behavior, the churn behavior. And by doing that, you can understand what's frustrating customers, causing them to churn out. And those customer insights help you improve your product, your service, your processes, and so on. So you can take all of these AI tools and techniques, use those techniques to analyze your customer data, generate customer insights, and then you can use those insights to improve your product, improve your marketing, improve your service, your operations, your branding, everything end to end. Now, understanding your customers is obviously really important, but if you want to build a company that serves your customers better, you're going to need to free up some time to do that. And that brings us to our next point. If you want to build an AI centric business in 2026, one of the things that I recommend is automating low value, repetitive work first. Let me explain. As I said previously, there are a variety of different tools that you can use to solve various types of business problems. But one of the best ways to use AI in a business is automating lower value, repetitive work. Why is that? Many people in business, and I hear this a lot in particular from high level business leaders and entrepreneurs, many people in business kind of get bogged down with lower value, repetitive work. And that prevents them from doing the higher value work that drives revenue, drives profit, and drives ROI. So if you want to build a great company, one of the smartest things that you can do is identify all of the repetitive tasks that you might be able to farm out to an AI system and then automate those things. So this is going to vary from business to business, and you might want to work with an automation expert to really help you with this. But we're talking about things like routing certain requests, doing follow-ups to requests or follow-ups to processes, automating simple workflows, automating some simple reporting, and so on. In many cases, you can use various automation tools and techniques. You can also use AI agents for some of this. And if you do this right, you're going to get faster cycle times, lower error rates, and lower levels of burnout for your employees, but also more time and freedom either to serve customers better and focus on higher value work, or just more time and freedom to maybe relax a little bit more. But if you're automating work, automating decision flows, automating workflows, you might be asking, what are the humans going to do? Some people say that AI is going to automate jobs away, and I don't think that's true at all. And this brings us to our next key point. If you want to build an AI first business in 2026, you need to shift human work more towards training, orchestration, validation, and subject matter expertise. This is a key thing that I think many business leaders are sort of getting wrong. People are very afraid, and I think sort of justifiably, but they're very afraid that AI is going to automate all the jobs away. And as I said, I don't think that's true. For starters, AI systems don't work perfectly right out of the box. They often need to be built and trained and structured in a certain way to operate well inside of a business. What that means is you're going to need people with a range of skills, as I suggested previously, things like data and AI and machine learning. You're going to need people that are capable of building and training these AI systems. You'll also need people that can validate the outputs. That will require people with technical skills on the AI and data and machine learning side, but it also requires some subject matter expertise. And in fact, in many cases, the subject matter experts are critical for building the system as well in the first place. So you'll need technical people to build and train and validate the systems. You will also need subject matter experts inside of your business to help build and train and validate the systems. Then, once the systems are built inside of an AI first business, humans in many cases should operate more like managers or orchestrators, making requests to the right system, building the context for those systems to work properly, observing the systems and helping, again, validate the outputs, and then serving as a sort of human in the loop if an AI system gets stuck. In many cases, AI systems are still very imperfect, and I think that they are going to continue being imperfect for quite some time. And humans are going to need to be available to work hand in hand with these AI systems and then offload some of the hardest work that the AI systems still cannot solve. So, in contrast to what many AI doomers are saying, I think that human beings are going to be absolutely critical inside of AI first businesses. Once you have your data and your people and your AI systems all working together, you'll be ready for the next step of building an AI first company. And that's what I call building an AI data flywheel. Let me explain. What ultimately distinguishes AI first businesses from their competitors is they build a sort of compounding loop between their data and their customers and their AI systems. So, in many cases, you're going to start out with a small set of customers and a little bit of data on those customers, some of your early customer interactions, customer research, and so on, that will enable you to use various AI tools and techniques to build AI systems, understand your customers, make better predictions, optimize your workflows, and so on. You won't be able to do everything early on, but you'll be able to do some things with AI. But if you use AI correctly in those earlier phases, that will help you get more customers and you'll gather more data from those customers. That new data will enable you to build new AI systems or use other AI techniques to understand your customers better, continue to optimize your workflows, make predictions, and so on. That once again enables you to get more customers, which enables you to get more data, which enables you to build new AI systems and tools, and so on. So, what it ends up being is a sort of flywheel, a loop between data collection, using that data to build better AI systems, getting more customers and more satisfied customers ultimately, such that the flywheel spins faster and faster. In the past, this was how many of the best companies were built. Most of the FAANG companies, certainly companies like Facebook and Google and Amazon, were kind of built on a flywheel like this. We are going to continue seeing something very similar in this new age, though. Now that we have large language models and agents, this AI data flywheel is going to become even more powerful. So, if you want to build an AI first business, you need to think with this endpoint in mind. Now, if you can build a business like this with the strong data foundations, the right talent, building and using the right AI tools and techniques for the right problems, you'll easily be in the top few percent of companies over the next decade. But in order to do this properly, you're going to need one more thing, and that's a leader that can help you implement it. You're going to need a chief AI officer, a CIO. So in this next video, I'm going to tell you exactly what to look for in a chief AI officer. The traits, the skills, the mindsets, everything that you'll need in a leader that will help you build your AI first company. You can check it out here. What to look for in a chief AI officer.